Alright, so this is going to be like one of a whole series of videos that we're going to do, and just have discussions so that people can get general insight into different topics.
Okay.
A lot of people are asking about stuff, and we're answering the same questions over and over again. And they say, like, why don't you just make a video about it?
Good idea.
Okay, cool. So I thought to kick off, the first one that we do is hot on this topic at the moment with pollination season. It's coming probably what's it, about halfway through KZN pollination season?
Yeah, I think some of the areas in Mpumalanga and those areas, the pollination is coming to an end. On
beginning
various,
of September at the moment.
Yeah, on various fruits and nuts. But in KwaZulu-Natal, our flowering started quite late this year. So most of the orchards are reporting that they are currently in full bloom. Usually by the first week of October, we start pulling hives out. But if they're only in full bloom now, we're probably only going to start pulling out hives beginning of November. Okay. So it does push things on a little bit.
So the one thing that a lot of the people are talking about, I mean, they go along and say, well, I can bring hives to pollination, and I've got 5 hives in my yard. I can go along and just take them to pollination. But I think that's I think people don't understand at the moment that there's a certain way that you prepare a hive to go into pollination, that you make them, what do you call it, pollen hungry?
Yeah, pollen hungry. So I actually had this discussion with a farmer just yesterday, and one of the things that is often left out is that discussion on how to prepare a hive for pollination.
Yeah.
So what happens is, if your hive takes a natural progression according to nature, what happens is as soon as your flowers start opening, your queen will realize there's lots of pollen coming into the hive, and so she'll up her laying accordingly, which means that at the peak of your flowering period, you don't have as much of a workforce as what you need to have to go and collect that pollen. So they're still busy on the up, and you need them to basically, when those first flowers open, the hive should be at the peak of production. So you should already have prepared your hive 40 days prior to them being needed in the orchard.
How do you do that?
By stimulating the queen to lay.
Okay.
So there's a number of different ways that you can do that. You can either just use a pollen supplement, so she'll realize that there's pollen available and increase her laying. For some people, they also they'll also give a sugar supplement. So you would mix a very watery sugar supplement, usually about 2 or 3 parts water to 1 part sugar, and that would replicate to a certain degree royal jelly. Okay. So they would then feed the queen, and so it ups her energy levels and ups her laying as well. We only use pollen supplements because if you miss that window and you've upped it too much, and like we've had this season where it's a bit late, you're having to really supplement. Carry on feeding them to keep them there. Exactly. So what we normally do is 40 days prior to us needing the bees in the orchards, we supplement feed with pollen patties. The pollen patties that we make have got sugar added to them. They also have added amino acids. Now, amino acids.
What's the sugar for? For energy.
For energy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amino acids. Sorry.
Amino acids are found naturally in different pollens, and if you're giving a pollen supplement, it only has one type of pollen usually, or a replica. So by adding those additional amino acids, you're basically creating healthier bees, healthier babies.
It would be the same as if they're going to many different types of flowers for different types of pollen.
Yeah, okay. So that amino acid is very, very important. And then also, if we feed a sugar supplement, that also has amino acids added and probiotics. So it's not just about creating new bees, it's about creating strong and healthy bees that will have a longer lifespan.
Okay.
So that's the way that we prepare the hives for pollination. And then once they go into the orchards, that pollen patty has done its job, and it's basically increased the laying of the queen. You end up with hives with, instead of having just your pollination ready hives that are only 3 frames of brood, by the time you're at your maximum flowers, you're sitting at 7, sometimes to 9 frames of brood in a brood chamber. And so that's a massive workforce that's ready to go and collect pollen, but also a pollen hungry hive that is needing sustenance.
And it's also about the number of frames of bees.
Yes.
Right? Because I mean, surely that's the number of workforce going out there to go and do the foraging and then coming back.
So if you have a pollen hungry hive, but there's only, let's say, a handful of workers available to go and collect the pollen, it doesn't matter how many babies there are, the workers are still only so many.
Yeah.
So that's why it's got to be planned well in advance. You need to have those. It's basically, you've got 4 weeks of a bee from egg to leaving the hive, 4 to 6 weeks. So you actually need to make sure that by 6 weeks you've got a massive workforce available, and a hive that still needs pollen.
How far? What is the ideal time before the flowers start? So do you put the hives in as they open, as the flowers open, or once they've opened?
It's a difficult one to judge because
depending on the farmer.
It depends on the farmer most of the time. Yeah, when do they want the bees? Yeah. So usually the farmers have certain spraying regimens that they carry out before the bees come into the orchards. Some of our farms, we're very fortunate where they have permanent hives, so they don't spray. But on those where you're bringing pollination units in, it's very important that you communicate with the farmer to find out when their spraying regimens have ended. And you need to give enough time for all those sprays and things to dry in the orchard as well. You can't just bring them in. Oh, we finished spraying yesterday, bring your bees. You've got to leave a little bit of a time period. And usually they would spray as their flowers have started opening.
So ideally you want to have your hive, start preparing your hive how far in advance to when your planned delivery to the farmer?
40 to 60 days.
40 to 60 days.
And often that's difficult to judge because I'll give you an example. On our blueberries, we were due to deliver in the first week of July, and we only started, their buds only really opened properly in I think almost the second week of August. So that's already almost 40 days late. So we had to supplement them additionally before that.
Because now you've built up this big workforce.
And now they need food. Exactly. And as anyone who's in KZN will know, usually we rely on our blue gum flow to help with that sustenance. But it was not as prolific as it usually is because we didn't have a very cold winter. So guys, it's very important that you understand your own environment and the areas in which you are keeping your bees, because also every apiary site is different. You know, we've got some apiary sites that we have no blue gum flow, but we get the Brazilian pepper on the coast that flowers. So that produces that nectar flow and pollen that we need.
And I think it also depends on the farmer, you know, as well, because you've got your farmer that goes along. You get some farmers that are like very prepared and they like got their routine and they go and set it every year. And then you've got the lastminute.com farmer.
The guy who phones and says, "Oh my word, I've got flowers. Can you bring bees tomorrow?"
Bees? How about 150 swarms? You know.
So guys, it's very important if you are farming and you are requiring bees for pollination. I always suggest that people secure what hives they need in February.
Build a relationship
with a beekeeper. Make sure you've got a signed contract. And you also need to know what you need. You can't rely on the beekeeper to provide what you think you need or what they think you need. You need to be in the know. You need to understand what it is.
It was quite interesting, like open day. I think you did a talk at it as well, the Mayo Mac or something like that.
It was at Eston. It was SAMAC. Their sort of open day. They did a pruning demonstration and all that. And some of the information that came forward from that on the annual report was that just for KwaZulu-Natal, looking at the number of macadamia trees in the ground currently, hectare-wise, they did a big census, and the results of that, SAMAC recommend 2 hives per hectare, 2 to 4 hives per hectare. Sure. If we do it on a base of 2, let's say minimum, this is on macadamias from 4 years old, in the next 3 years, just KwaZulu-Natal is going to need 136,000 colonies, commercial colonies for pollination.
Don't know where we're going to get that.
It's completely, I'll tell you right now, that's impossible. It's just impossible. There isn't enough forage to sustain the bees outside of those in this province. So, and the pollination period, it's not like KwaZulu-Natal can take hives from, for example, in Mpumalanga, because the pollination periods all overlap. So, guys, if you are a farmer, you need to start looking after your own pollination needs. You need to start keeping hives.
And stuff like that. And
even if you can
start off slowly,
start with 10. Put out catch boxes, catch some freebies.
One of your farmers actually started with, 20, and he went up to 50. Eventually you wanted to start telling him or something like that.
We've got one farmer who actually started on 10 to begin with, and that was the first year when his mac trees were at 4 years old, and he's now up to 70. And we're still catching bees there and splitting. And
over time you catch them. So it doesn't have to be like a massive capital outlay.
No, but start with something.
And your bigger hives, you can actually do the splitting, because at the end of the day, the farmers they're not there for the honey, they're there for the pollination.
Exactly.
So instead of having your hive strong and ready to get honey, you could split it and have, by the time the pollination season starts, you could have depending on the area and the...
Exactly, and it's important that farmers rely on experts in the field to help guide them. Don't,
someone that's been doing pollination, you can't just, someone that's got 2 hives in their backyard to be able to expect them to provide all the expertise and stuff.
Also understand that beekeepers all have different fields of expertise. So Brian, for example, most of your work is basically removals
and backyard
beekeeping, 1 or 2 hives. The management protocol for 2 hives is extremely different to 100 hives.
Totally different. We often have this debate, and we have a bit of a quarrel with each other from time to time. Her way of managing hives and my way of managing hives are totally different, but it's according to the actual situation. It's customized every single time.
Exactly.
Even your farmers, you customize, every management plan is different.
Exactly.
According to their environment, the
state of their hives as well contributes to that.
The one farm that you got, he bought a whole bunch of hives that were quite well priced, very cheap. But you had to do a lot of cutouts.
We've spent probably the last 6 months trying to bring the hives up to where they need to be.
Whereas his neighbour had established swarms and he was just printing honey already
exactly
at that point.
Yeah.
So I think it's all
and I think it's also good to, you know, from time to time, go into the hive with your beekeeper. Go and see what they're doing.
Tell them to bring an extra bee suit.
Bring a bee suit and go and have a look so that you can get a better understanding of what it is that you're paying for.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Well, cool. I think this is a good one.
Yeah.
And we'll make more of these.
Excellent. Guys, if you have any questions, just post them on the comments here and we'll answer them as best we can. And also if you'd like us to cover certain topics
you want us to cover,
then let us know.
Post it in the comments and we'll tackle them.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.